They say that in the late winter of 1428, when the frost still clung to the stones of San Gimignano's narrow streets, a silence fell upon the village that even the bells dared not disturb. It was not the silence of peace, but of fear, a quiet thickened by whispers that the old monastery on the hill had begun ringing its bells at hours no monk was alive to pull the ropes. The story begins with a traveler, a man no one had seen before, who arrived through the southern gate one gray morning. He wore a cloak too fine for a pilgrim, yet too worn for a nobleman. His boots were caked with mud from the Arno Valley, and his hands trembled not from cold, but from something unseen, something that followed him all the way from Florence. He asked for a room at the inn called La Torre Spezzata, the broken tower, and spoke little. Only once did he mutter, when the innkeeper asked his business, "I have come to collect a debt long forgotten." No one knew what he meant, and no one dared ask. That night, the moon hung low over the olive groves, pale as old parchment. The traveler sat by the fire, his face half lit by the flames, reading from a leather-bound book so cracked and dry it looked centuries old. The innkeeper's daughter, Lucia, swore she saw faint writing appear and vanish on its pages as though written by invisible hands. When she asked him, he shut the book and whispered, "Some words are not meant to stay." A storm came in from the sea that night. The wind clawed through the alleys, rattling shutters and making the tower bells sing without touch. And just past midnight, when the town was half asleep, a scream echoed from the hills. At dawn, the traveler was gone. The villagers climbed toward the old monastery, following the faint cry that had not yet faded from their minds. The road twisted through fields of frozen grapevines and led to ruins that no one had entered in decades. The gates stood open. Inside, the chapel smelled of salt and ashes, and on the altar, burned into the stone, was a circle of Latin words, "Non reditur a morti." There is no return from death. The abbot's old quarters were untouched, save for one thing, a single black feather lying on the desk beside an ink pot. Word spread quickly, and soon the bishop's men arrived from Siena to investigate. Among them was Father Matteo, a scholar of strange texts and forgotten faiths. He ordered the villagers to stay away from the monastery, but every night he was seen wandering the hills with a lantern, muttering prayers not heard in any church. 3 days later, the traveler returned. He appeared at dusk, standing in the town square, his eyes hollow, his hands stained with something dark. He asked for wine, but drank none of it. Instead, he spoke softly to anyone who would listen. "The bells are not calling the monks," he said. "They are warning the living." No one dared answer him. That evening, Lucia followed him. She saw him walk through the vineyards toward the monastery, carrying his strange book pressed against his chest. She kept her distance, though curiosity gnawed at her. When he reached the gates, the bells began to toll again, without wind, without rope. The sound was not metallic, but mournful, as if the stones themselves were crying. Through a crack in the wall, Lucia saw him kneel before the altar. He opened the book and began to speak in Latin, his voice trembling. "Recludetur porta inter vivos et mortuos." The gate between the living and the dead is opening. The ground shook. Dust fell from the rafters, and then the air turned cold enough to freeze her breath. A light flickered above the altar, faint, golden, almost like candlelight, but there were no candles. She saw shapes moving within it, faces that seemed to melt in and out of view. And then the traveler screamed. It was not a sound of pain, but of revelation, as though something inside him had seen what no man should. The light burst, the bells roared, and when Lucia dared to open her eyes again, the traveler was gone. Only his book remained. Lying open on the cold floor, she crept forward, her hands shaking. The pages were blank, every word gone, save for one line that seemed freshly written. "He has crossed and cannot return." Lucia ran back to town before the sun rose, her feet bleeding, her heart pounding with a fear that words could not contain. But when she tried to tell the bishop's men what she had seen, they found no trace of the book or the traveler. Only the black feather remained, now resting upon the chapel's threshold. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. Livestock were found dead, but unmarked. Wells froze overnight. Though the air was mild, children spoke in their sleep, whispering names no one recognized. And every night, as the moon climbed, the bells began their song once more. Father Matteo wrote letters to Rome, begging for aid, but none arrived. He turned instead to the old archives of the monastery, where he discovered something the church had long sealed away: a record of an order of monks who practiced the vigil of the veil, a rite said to reveal what lies between life and death. The ritual was banned in 1312 after an abbot vanished during its performance, leaving behind only black feathers and an empty robe. The father began to suspect that the traveler was not who he claimed to be. Perhaps he was one of the monks' descendants, cursed to finish what his ancestors had begun. Or perhaps he was something else entirely, a man who had already crossed once and returned against the warning carved in stone. Then, one night, Father Matteo himself disappeared. Lucia found his room in disarray, papers scattered like leaves. On his desk lay a single candle, still burning though no one had touched it. Beneath it, a note: "If the bells toll thrice before dawn, do not look to the hills, for that is not the light of morning." The bells tolled thrice that night, and though every soul in San Gimignano locked their doors and prayed, one man, the blacksmith, peered through his window toward the monastery. He saw, or believed he saw, figures walking in the fields, their robes torn, their faces pale as wax. They moved in silence, yet the earth seemed to groan beneath their feet. He never spoke of it again. Weeks passed. The fields withered. The travelers stopped coming. Even the merchants avoided the road that led past the broken tower. The inn closed its doors, and Lucia was last seen leaving the village at dusk, her hair hidden beneath a black veil, carrying a single feather tied with twine. They say she never spoke again, not even when found years later in a convent near Bologna. When asked of the monastery or the bells, she would only whisper, "He crossed," and the gate was never closed. And those centuries have passed. On certain nights when the mist crawls down from the hills, the people of Tuscany still claim to hear the faint tolling of a bell that no hand pulls, calling out across the valley like the breath of the forgotten dead. The message reached Rome months after the bells of San Gimignano fell silent. The parchment was water-stained, the ink smeared, the seal half broken, yet the mark of Father Matteo remained clear. The cross with the circle. Beneath, the emblem of the forbidden vigil of the veil. Within the dim chambers of the Vatican archives, The message was read aloud to a small circle of men whose names were never written in any record. They called themselves Custodes Umbrae, the keepers of the shadow, and their duty was to investigate the faith's most dangerous relics. The eldest among them, Cardinal Borgia of Perugia, listened without expression as the trembling scribe read Matteo's final words. "The veil has been disturbed. The bells are the warning. Send no one unblessed." 3 days later, a carriage departed from Rome under cover of night. Inside were 3 men: Father Aurelio, a scholar of lost liturgies; Brother Tommaso, once an inquisitor; and Captain Darno, a soldier whose faith was said to waver like a candle in the wind. They carried no banners, only a small wooden chest wrapped in chains. Inside it, sealed by wax and prayer, was a relic, a fragment of blackened bones said to belong to a saint who had died in silence. As they rode north toward Tuscany, the air grew colder. The peasants along the road crossed themselves as they passed, whispering that the hills still echoed with the cries of unseen voices. In the taverns, no one spoke of the monastery. The villagers called it La Casa Senza Luz, the house without light. When they arrived, the gates of San Gimignano were half collapsed. The vines had grown wild, curling over broken walls. Even the birds avoided the monastery hill. Father Aurelio noted the absence of sound. No wind, no insects, not even the murmur of leaves. Only the distant thrum of unseen bells beneath the earth. They made camp at the base of the hill and prayed at dusk. They climbed inside the chapel. The air was thick with dust and rot. The altar still wore the scorched Latin circle, but now new marks had been carved into the stone, symbols none of them recognized. Tommaso ran his fingers over one and flinched. "These are not letters," he whispered. "They are words. Someone tried to seal something in." Captain Darno lifted his lantern, or to keep something out. Father Aurelio opened his book of rites and began to read softly, his voice echoing through the ruined nave. The flame of the lantern flickered, stretching long shadows across the walls. The moment he uttered the word Mass, the bell above the chapel rang once. All 3 froze. The rope hung unmoved. The bell swung on its own, slow and heavy, as if some unseen hand were testing its weight. Brother Tommaso crossed himself. "That is no ghost wind," he said. They pressed deeper into the ruins, following a staircase that wound beneath the altar into a crypt older than the monastery itself. There, in the torchlight, they found what Father Matteo must have discovered: a series of stone coffers, each sealed with wax and carved with the same phrase, Non Redditor Amorti. Darno brushed away the dust and frowned. "If these are graves," he said, "then where are the bones?" The coffers were empty. In the last chamber, however, one coffin remained sealed. On its lid was carved not Latin, but a name, Lucianus. Beneath it, faint scratches suggested someone had tried to pry it open, but failed. Father Aurelio knelt and prayed. "Lucianus," he murmured. "That name appears in no order of monks." Brother Tommaso's eyes darkened. "It does in one," he said. "The Vigil, their founder." Before Aurelio could respond, a sound rose from the coffin. A faint tapping, slow and deliberate. Once, twice, then silence. Captain Darno drew his sword. "Something's inside," he said. Tommaso shook his head. "No, something below." They stepped back as the stone beneath their feet began to tremble. Dust fell from the ceiling, and from the cracks in the floor came a breath, warm, damp, and human. Then, faintly, a voice. It spoke in Latin, but the words came fractured, as though dragged across centuries. You open what we sealed. You break the chain of silence. The lantern shattered. The chamber went dark. Aurelio felt the air tighten, the weight of unseen presence pressing against his chest. In the blackness, something moved, a whisper of cloth, a footstep too soft to be flesh. Then light flared from his crucifix, burning white against the shadows. For a brief instant he saw them, figures crowding the walls, faces pale as bone, mouths stitched shut with thread blacker than ink. Tommaso screamed. When the light faded, the figures were gone, and the coffin of Lucianus lay open. Inside was not a corpse, but a single black feather resting on a bed of ash. They fled the crypt, sealing the passage behind them with what holy oil remained. When they emerged into the chapel, the night had deepened, yet something was different. The bells had stopped. The silence was complete. Aurelio dared to hope they had succeeded. But as they turned to leave, they saw the book upon the altar, the traveler's book, the one Lucia had described years before. It was open, its pages blank save for one fresh line of ink. 3 shall open, 1 shall remain. They returned to Rome within the month, shaken but alive. The Vatican declared the monastery cursed and forbade anyone to return. The order of the Vigil of the Veil was erased from official scripture, its name stricken from the libraries. But peace did not follow. Brother Tommaso was the first to die, found in his cell, his mouth filled with feathers. Then Captain Darno vanished en route to Florence. Only Father Aurelio remained, haunted by dreams of the crypt and the tapping beneath the stone. He locked himself inside the archives, studying every record of Lucianus, every fragment of the vigil's rites. And there, one winter night, by candlelight, he found it, hidden in the margins of an illuminated manuscript. Between prayers and psalms was a note written centuries earlier. The founder of the vigil did not die. He crossed. The monks who followed sought to keep the gates sealed by sacrifice. Each feather marks a soul given to bind the door. Aurelio felt the chill spread through his body. He turned the page and found another line, one that made his heart stop. The gate was never in San Gimignano. The hill was only its shadow. The true passage lies beneath the city of Florence. He closed the book, trembling. The bells of the Vatican began to ring the hour, though it was past midnight. And as the sound echoed through the corridors, Aurelio heard beneath it something else, a faint tolling, far away, too deep to be of this world. He took his lantern and descended into the archive's lowest vault, where the oldest relics were kept. Bones of saints, fragments of crosses, shards of unspoken miracles. There, behind the sealed chest that had held the blackened bone, he found a hidden door. It was small, made of iron, engraved with the same circle he had seen burned into the altar. Non reditor a morti. The air was cold, yet something beyond it called to him, a breath like the whisper of distant water. He hesitated only once, murmured a prayer, and turned the key. The door opened. No record was ever written of what Father Aurelio saw beneath the Vatican that night, only that when dawn came, his chamber was empty, his crucifix left upon the floor, and his candle burned down to nothing. In the years that followed, the bells of San Gimignano never rang again. But every few winters, when fog rolls down from Florence and the air tastes of salt and stone, the travelers who pass the valley at night swear they can hear it, the faint tolling of a single bell, deep beneath the earth, echoing like a heartbeat that refuses to die. It was the spring of 2021 when Dr. Elena Rossi first heard of the sealed vault beneath the Vatican archives. The mention came not in a lecture or scholarly journal, but in a forgotten letter tucked inside a 15th century codex she had been cataloging for months. The ink was faded, the Latin archaic, but the meaning was unmistakable. The vigil persists. The gate waits beneath the stone. Few may enter, few return. Elena had always been drawn to mysteries. Her father, a historian obsessed with the obscure rituals of medieval Italy, had disappeared when she was 12. The official report claimed he had drowned near the Arno, but Elena had never believed it. Now, decades later, the same shadow of obsession that had taken her father called to her. She assembled a team, no strangers to the unusual. Matteo Vitelli, an archaeologist with a reputation for finding hidden chambers in monasteries. Luca Conti, a cryptographer fascinated by coded medieval texts. And Sofia Benedetti, an expert in ancient religious rituals. Together, they were drawn to the archives by what some might call coincidence. But Elena knew better. Some histories were waiting for their witness. Their journey began in Florence. The city was alive with tourists and traffic, oblivious to the darkness that slept beneath its stones. Elena's instructions were precise. Locate the vault hidden behind centuries of documentation. Sealed by the Vatican, untouched by human hands since the disappearance of Father Aurelio. Their first obstacle came immediately. The entrance was concealed behind shelves of manuscripts, protected by a lock that resisted even modern tools. Luca worked quietly, tracing the markings on the keyhole, symbols, he noted, similar to those found in the codex. The same circular Latin phrase, non redditor amorti. Hours passed. Sweat dampened their clothes. Outside, the city rang with the midday bells, innocent and ordinary, masking the hidden heartbeat beneath. At last, with a soft click, the door yielded. A narrow staircase led downward, air heavy with dust and the scent of iron. Elena felt her pulse quicken. She whispered a warning. Once we step in, there is no turning back. The descent took them into darkness that even their lanterns struggled to penetrate. The walls were carved stone, ancient and worn. Faint scratches, centuries old, traced across the walls like desperate messages. Sophia recognized some of the marks, ritual symbols of the Vigil of the Veil, signs meant to contain what should never rise. As they progressed, the air grew colder. Elena's breath crystallized before her face. Then, a sound, a distant, low tolling, not the city bells above, not the echo of traffic, but something deep in the stone, rhythmic, deliberate. She froze. Matteo looked at her, eyes wide. You hear that? Yes, she whispered. It's them. The team arrived at a chamber larger than any expected. Its ceiling vaulted and cracked. In the center, a pedestal of blackened stone bore remnants of wax and ash. Around it, a circle of black feathers had been laid, almost ceremonial, though no living hand had placed them recently. Lucas stepped closer, brushing one with his finger. The feather dissolved into dust, vanishing before his eyes. Sophia shivered. The gate, she said, her voice low, It is still here. Elena opened her notebook, comparing the symbols in the chamber with those in the codex. The correlation was undeniable. This was the final stage of the Vigil of the Veil, the ritual to maintain the boundary between the living and the dead. One misstep, and whatever Father Aurelio had glimpsed could return. They pressed forward, finding another door, smaller, iron-bound. The inscriptions warned, only the willing may pass. One remains, one crosses, all else fail. Elena's hands shook as she pushed. The hinges groaned, releasing a cold breath that smelled of earth and decay. Inside lay a crypt, untouched for centuries. Stone coffins lined the walls, carved with names now lost to memory. In the center, a single coffin larger than the rest, engraved with Lucianus, the same name from Father Aurelio's notes. The lid was intact, but faint scratches suggested it had been disturbed recently. Elena felt a pull she could not explain, a magnetism emanating from the coffin. "Do we open it?" she asked. Sophia's hands trembled. "It is not safe. Whatever is inside, it may not be human." But Luca, ever the skeptic, ignored the warnings. "We need proof. This is history. This is..." He hesitated. "Truth." Elena shook her head. "Truth can wait. The vigil is not a story. It is a warning." Before any decision could be made, the chamber quivered. The air thickened. The distant tolling grew louder, vibrating through stone and bone. One of the coffins rattled. Then another. A whisper, unintelligible, rose from the walls, multiplying, layering over itself. Matteo's lantern flickered and died. Darkness enveloped them. Then, just as suddenly, light returned, faint, golden, as if the room itself had breathed illumination. The lid of Lucianus' coffin shifted. Slowly, deliberately, it opened. Nothing moved inside. The coffin appeared empty, save for a black feather lying across the stone. Elena bent closer, her lantern illuminating its sheen. It shimmered unnaturally, as if alive. Suddenly, a voice, not from a person, but from the chamber itself, filled the room. "You awaken what should sleep. 3 have come, 1 remains." The team froze. The feather lifted from the stone, hovering in the air, spinning as if caught in wind that did not exist. Sophia screamed as shadows poured from the walls, coalescing into shapes that resembled the figures Father Aurelio had described. Monks with pale, stitched mouths, faces flickering between flesh and shadow. The chamber door slammed shut. Luca tried to push, but the iron would not budge. Matteo's sword passed through the shadows, hitting nothing. Elena realized with dawning horror. The boundary was breaking. The tolling of the bells, distant yet omnipresent, intensified. The shadows advanced, yet none moved in a straight line. They twisted, elongated, overlapping in impossible ways. The feathers spun faster, and the air grew thick, almost viscous. Elena understood. The warning was literal. The vigil had not ended. It had waited centuries for the right convergence. 3 souls, their curiosity bound, their will untested dot in the chaos. Sophia fell, reaching out for the feather. It passed through her hand, yet left a burning cold in her chest. Matteo was dragged back against the wall by unseen force, his sword clattering to the floor. Luca screamed, attempting to grab the feather, only to see it vanish into the shadows, taking a fragment of light with it. Elena backed away, reciting prayers from memory, her voice shaking yet steady. The figures recoiled slightly, hissing like a wind over stones. She realized what the message meant. One remains. Time slowed. The shadows circled, examining, testing. The feather returned. Floating before her, she felt an understanding, a choice. Step forward and take the place the vigil demanded, or retreat and leave the gate to collapse, possibly unleashing what had been contained for centuries. Her team, unconscious or immobilized, could not assist. The air grew colder, and the tolling reached a crescendo. Elena inhaled, knowing what must be done. She reached for the feather. The moment her fingers brushed it, light exploded from the coffin, searing and pure. The shadows screamed, then dissipated, leaving the chamber silent except for the soft echo of bells that now seemed mournful, not warning. Elena fell to her knees. The black feather was gone. She was alone, alive, but changed. The gate had closed, but the tolling remained, not as a warning, but as a heartbeat, a reminder that some doors are never truly locked. When the Vatican guards finally broke into the chamber hours later, they found her alone, pale, whispering in Latin she would never speak aloud again. The manuscripts, the coffins, the feathers, all gone. Only the tolling of invisible bells seemed to linger in the air, a secret that had survived centuries. Outside, the city of Florence moved on, oblivious. Tourists photographed the Duomo, street vendors called out. Yet, beneath the cobblestones, in the forgotten corridors of the archives, something waited, patient, silent, tolling softly. By late autumn of 2021, fragments of reports had begun to surface across Europe, isolated, seemingly unrelated incidents, but all sharing subtle commonalities. Bells tolling in abandoned churches, shadows moving without bodies, feathers appearing in places they should not. Dr. Elena Rossi had tried to warn authorities discreetly, but the Vatican, wary of scandal and centuries of secrecy, had dismissed her accounts as delusions born from proximity to the archives. Yet, she knew the truth. The Vigil of the Veil had never been confined to Italy. It was a network, hidden for centuries, moving silently across borders, waiting for the right moment. Her first clue came from Paris. A library curator contacted her anonymously, claiming that in the catacombs beneath Notre Dame, ancient carvings depicted a circular symbol, the same Latin phrase she had seen repeatedly, non reditur morti. Embedded within the stone were feather-like etchings, a manuscript, previously thought lost in the 17th century, contained a warning identical to those in the Vatican codices. The gate must not open, for the watchers remain. Elena gathered a team for the journey. Luca Conti, recovered from the trauma of Florence, joined despite visible scars. Sofia Benedetti had returned to her homeland in Venice, now wary, but willing. Matteo Vitelli declined. He had lost faith, believing that some secrets were never meant to resurface. The train from Milan to Paris rattled through countryside painted gold with the early fall. Elena felt the weight of centuries pressing down, each station bringing her closer to a truth no historian had ever encountered firsthand. Arriving in Paris, the team moved cautiously. The cathedral loomed overhead, its spires piercing the pale sky. Beneath, the catacombs extended like veins under the city, twisting and collapsing in endless darkness. Elena carried the codex, Luca the lantern, Sophia the protective charms she had painstakingly recreated from historical references. Their first steps into the catacombs were met with silence. No dripping water, no rats, no wind. Only stone walls pressed in on every side. Then, faintly, the tolling began. Not one bell, but dozens, layered atop each other in a rhythm that made the heart seize. Elena whispered a warning. The watchers test those who enter. They know your fear. The passage opened into a circular chamber. Pillars carved with symbols older than France itself encircled a central dais. On it rested a coffin, unlike any she had seen, dark, carved from a single block of stone. Smooth and impossibly black. Feathers littered the floor, countless in number, yet undisturbed, as though time had frozen them. Sophia's voice trembled. The vigil is not confined to one place. It moves, always watching. Luca approached the coffin. There is writing, here, etched into the stone. It is Latin, but mixed with something older. He traced the carvings with his fingers. It speaks of a gate, a keeper, and a debt owed across nations. The moment he finished reading aloud, the chamber shifted. Shadows moved in the corners, not cast by light, but emerging from the walls themselves. Figures materialized, monks in tattered robes, faces pale, mouths stitched shut. They circled slowly, their presence oppressive, as if time itself resisted their existence. Elena realized that the Codex had predicted this. The Watchers were real. They were the spirits of the vigil, bound to prevent the gate from opening, yet drawn to those who attempted to uncover it. A feather floated in from above, spinning in the air before settling at Elena's feet. She bent to pick it up, feeling its unnatural weight. The whispers grew louder, layered, almost forming coherent words. 3 have come, 1 remains. The debt must be paid. Sophia screamed as one shadow lunged, passing through her chest yet leaving no mark. The air grew cold, icy as if the grave itself exhaled. Luca attempted to flee, but the shadows coalesced into barriers, blocking the exits. The bells rang again, deep, resonant, vibrating through bone and stone. Elena understood the ritual required a choice. As centuries ago in San Gimignano and beneath the Vatican, someone had to remain to contain the gate. One soul must bear the vigil. The others could survive, but only by leaving the gate intact. She raised the Codex, chanting prayers derived from the text, her voice trembling yet strong. The shadows recoiled slightly, the tolling slowed, as though listening. Then the feathers lifted, spinning around the coffin, forming a vortex of light and darkness. Sophia tried to pull Elena back. We cannot do this here. Will. A shadow passed through Sophia, freezing her mid-step. She was unharmed physically, but her eyes reflected centuries of knowledge she could not comprehend. She whispered, trembling, "The Watchers. They see all, even the choices not yet made." Luca, desperate, grabbed Elena's arm. "We can leave. Just run." Elena shook her head, understanding that the gate, if disturbed without ritual, would release forces beyond imagination. She took a step forward, placing her hand on the coffin. The feathers surged upward, surrounding her. The tolling became deafening, resonating with the rhythm of her heartbeat. A figure emerged from the darkness, taller than the rest, with eyes like frozen flame. Its robe was blacker than shadow itself, stitched with symbols that seemed to crawl. Elena knew, without knowing how, that this was Lucianus, the founder of the vigil, eternal, waiting for a willing soul. You have come far. The figure's voice reverberated through the chamber, echoing in multiple tones simultaneously. You see the gate. You understand its weight. Who will remain? Elena looked at her team. Sophia, shaken but resolute, nodded. Luca's face was pale with fear. She realized the choice had fallen on her. The Watchers demanded continuity, and she had been chosen by circumstance and courage. The figure extended a hand. Elena felt herself drawn, lifted, aligned with the vortex of feathers. Her mind spun with centuries of memories, rituals, failures, warnings, lives lost to protect the threshold. Pain, understanding, and clarity collided in a single instant. The tolling slowed. The shadows receded into the walls. The feathers collapsed into a single point of light that merged with Elena's chest. She gasped. Time seemed to stretch, then snapped out when the Paris authorities found the catacombs the next morning. The chamber was empty, the coffin intact, the feathers gone, yet traces of frost lingered on the floor. Unexplainable in spring, the city above continued its normal rhythm, oblivious to the fact that one soul had taken up the vigil. Elena Rossi was gone. Her apartment in Florence remained, untouched except for a single black feather on her desk. Luca and Sophia returned to their lives, but neither spoke openly of what had occurred. The tolling, faint and distant, echoed through dreams and in the quiet of empty rooms. And across Europe, in abandoned bell towers, crypts and forgotten churches, the Watchers waited, patient, eternal. The vigil had moved beyond Italy, beyond Florence and Paris. Its scope was infinite, stretching across borders, centuries, and lives, and the world continued, unaware, as the gates between life and death remained ajar, bound by the choice of one who had crossed and would never return. Even today, if one walks alone through the catacombs beneath Paris or listens carefully to the tolling of an ancient church bell, they may hear it, a rhythm not of this world, calling across centuries, a heartbeat of the vigil, echoing the debt that must always be paid. Winter of 2020 brought reports that could not be ignored. Across Europe, seemingly unrelated events began forming patterns too precise to be coincidental. In Prague, the bells of St. Vitus Cathedral tolled in the dead of night with no hand to pull the ropes. In Madrid, a historian cataloging 15th-century manuscripts disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only a single black feather. In Edinburgh, shadows were reported moving independently through the halls of a closed abbey, terrifying guards and locals alike. Elena Rossi was gone, yet the Vigil of the Veil had not abandoned its course. She had become its anchor, bound beyond time, the sole living conduit maintaining the gate. Her presence, unseen, stabilized the ritual, but with every passing month, anomalies increased. The Watchers, the eternal monks with stitched mouths, were no longer confined to one city or crypt. They had begun traversing the world, drawn to human curiosity and the echoes of forgotten rituals. In Florence, Luca Conti and Sofia Benedetti watched the news with growing dread. Each story mirrored what they had experienced in Paris, a subtle crescendo of signs and coincidences that defied rational explanation. A pattern emerged. The further the events were from the original sites of the vigil, the more aggressive, more vivid the signs became. Feathers appeared spontaneously on train seats in offices, even atop altars in still active churches. "I've counted 6 incidents this month alone," Luca said, showing Sophia a map marked with locations, all following the same rules. Bells ringing without cause, shadows moving unnaturally, feathers appearing, and each report coincides with the moon's phases. Sophia shivered. "It's not random. Someone or something is orchestrating it. The vigil is expanding. Elena isn't just holding the gate. She's everywhere at once, keeping the watchers in check." They agreed on a course of action to trace the manifestations, hoping to find a pattern that might predict the next surge. Their first lead took them to Vienna, where the bells of St. Stephen's Cathedral had tolled 13 times at midnight. No wind, no human interference, nothing on the security cameras. Arriving at the cathedral at dusk, Luca and Sophia felt the chill before they reached the doors. The city's usual hum faded into silence, as if the streets themselves held their breath. Inside, the shadows were immediate, long, curling along the stone floors, moving against the light. They had arrived too late to see the source. The tolling had ceased, yet the residue remained. Feathers scattered across pews, pulsing faintly, as if still alive, and walls etched with symbols from the vigil codices. Sophia traced one marking with her gloved hand. "They're trying to communicate," she whispered, "or warn us." From beneath the cathedral, a sound emerged, not a bell, but a soft, rhythmic drumming, echoing like a heartbeat through stone and mortar. Luca's skin prickled. "The watchers are here. They're aware of us." The drumming intensified as they descended into the crypts, revealing a chamber they could not have anticipated. In the center lay a large stone dais, edged with Latin warnings, surrounded by black feathers forming a perfect circle. A coffin rested atop the dais, sealed but humming with unseen energy. The air shimmered, cold and dense, pressing against their lungs. Suddenly, the coffin lid trembled. Shadows coalesced from the corners, figures taller than men, robed in black, their mouths stitched, eyes hollow yet burning with light. The drumming became a chorus, a symphony of tolls reverberating in the stone. Sophia clutched Luca's arm. "We can't intervene," she whispered. "The vigil chooses. We are witnesses, nothing more." And then the coffin lid opened slowly. Inside, no body, only a single black feather levitating above the stone. It hovered, spinning, vibrating with energy, pulsing with a force that seemed to synchronize with the distant bell towers of Vienna. Luca stepped forward, compelled despite himself. He felt a tug, an irresistible magnetic pull drawing him toward the feather. Sophia screamed as shadows surged toward him, brushing past, freezing him in place. The feather landed on his palm, weightless, but full of power. Luca felt the centuries of the vigil press into his mind, visions of crypts, rituals, and monks who had maintained the balance for centuries. "The watchers," he gasped. They are everywhere." The shadows receded slightly, and the feather glowed faintly in Luca's hand. A whisper filled the chamber, layered voices speaking in Latin, and older tongues, repeating a warning. "The gate cannot be left unattended. The vigil is eternal. The watchers will return for the lost." Sophia's eyes widened. "It's not just Europe," she whispered. "Everywhere humans forget the rituals. Every place curiosity awakens the dead. The vigil will manifest. Cities, towns, buildings, The watchers follow knowledge, following the curiosity of the living. For hours they remained, documenting and observing the chamber without touching anything further. When they finally left, the streets of Vienna had returned to normal. Tourists passed by, unaware. Yet, when they looked back at the cathedral, faint shadows flickered under the arches, vanishing when observed directly. By the following month, reports surged in London, Berlin, Lisbon. Bells tolled inexplicably, shadows moved against the laws of physics, and black feathers appeared in museums, libraries, and archives, artifacts of the vigil marking locations across the continent. Each incident followed a cycle: tolling, shadows, feather, warning, silence. Luca and Sophia realized that the vigil was no longer confined to a location. It had become systemic, tied to humanity's curiosity, spreading wherever knowledge of the past sought to pierce the veil. Elena Rossi, wherever she existed, was still holding the gate. But her presence could not contain the growing reach of the watchers. In Florence, Sophia found a note tucked under a stone near the Arno, a single black feather pinned to it, written in elegant script, impossible to trace. The world awakens. The vigil expands. One gate remains open. Prepare the witness. They understood the implication. A new chapter was beginning. The vigil was no longer local. It was global. The watchers could appear anywhere knowledge intersected with forgotten ritual. Humanity's curiosity had become the key to their own peril, and somewhere, unseen, Elena Rossi's consciousness stretched, bound to the threshold. Maintaining the balance across Europe, she remained vigilant, eternal, a silent guardian against a force that moved faster than time itself. The world above went about its routine, ignorant of the tolling bells that heralded events in crypts and cathedrals across continents. The shadows waited, patient and precise. The vigil had awakened globally, and those who dared to look too deeply into history risked crossing the threshold. In offices, homes, and libraries, black feathers began appearing spontaneously, heralding the watcher's presence. The tolling was faint but persistent, echoing in dreams, in empty corridors, and in the heartbeat of those sensitive enough to notice. The vigil's influence was no longer bound by stone or city. It had become a whisper across the world, subtle but omnipresent, a warning that the line between life and death could never be crossed lightly. And the watchers waited, patient as ever, counting, observing, ensuring that the gate remained bound until curiosity inevitably called again. By the spring of 2023, the tolling of bells was no longer confined to abandoned churches or hidden crypts. Reports began surfacing in news outlets that were quickly dismissed as hoaxes. Bells ringing in skyscrapers, in train stations, even in underground metro tunnels, where no human could reach the mechanisms. Social media captured videos of empty towers vibrating with the resonance of chimes, often accompanied by black feathers drifting slowly to the ground. In some clips, shadows flickered along walls, moving contrary to the direction of light. In Florence, Sophia and Luca had set up a small monitoring operation, using historical maps, archives, and the few cryptic references from the codices Elena had left behind. They discovered a chilling pattern. The vigil was no longer stationary. Its influence had expanded, tied not to buildings, but to curiosity itself, to the act of investigation, study, or even casual questioning about the rituals of the past. The first significant incident occurred in Berlin. Dr. Anja Klein, a cryptographer and historian known for her work on medieval ritual codes, disappeared from her office late one night. Surveillance footage showed her standing alone in her study, leafing through a 15th-century manuscript. A black feather appeared on her desk. Then the lights flickered. The next frame captured only an empty room with papers strewn about, as though a storm had passed indoors. No trace of her was ever found. Sophia studied the footage. "It's the same pattern we've seen in Paris and Vienna," she said. "Tolling, shadows, feathers, disappearance. The vigil doesn't just exist in stone. It moves with knowledge." Luca nodded grimly. "It's adaptive. It's no longer bound by geography or architecture. It reacts to human curiosity. And Elena, she's still the anchor. Without her, the gate would collapse entirely." The two researchers received reports from all over Europe: London, Warsaw, Barcelona. Individuals known to study occult or medieval history vanished. CCTV cameras recorded shadows moving independently of human presence. Feathers appeared in offices, archives, and libraries, and always, faintly, the sound of tolling. It was as if the vigil were learning, evolving, expanding its reach with every step humanity took toward forbidden knowledge. Sophia traveled to London after hearing about the sudden disappearance of a historian. In the British Museum, the historian, Professor Calloway, had been studying illuminated manuscripts from the 1400s. CCTV showed him alone in a basement archive. The room suddenly illuminated by a golden glow. Shadows stretched along the walls, moving against the lamps. A feather floated down onto his desk, and then the footage ended. He vanished without a trace. When Sophia arrived, she felt the air shift around her. The museum was open, bustling with visitors. Yet, beneath the floor, in the archives, the energy was dense, almost solid. She walked cautiously, clutching a copy of the codex Elena had given her. Luca had warned her via encrypted message. "Do not engage with the feathers or the shadows. Observe only. The Watcher's test, not attack. Those who do not interfere." In the archives, she saw it, a single feather spinning in the air, suspended without wind. Shadows flickered in the corners, impossible to photograph, moving against light and perception. She felt a pull, magnetic and irresistible, drawing her toward the center of the room. She heard it then, a whisper layered in multiple tones, speaking simultaneously in Latin, Old Italian, and a language she did not recognize. "The gate is open. The vigil expands. Witness the dead. Choose the anchor." Sophia froze, remembering the warnings from Elena's notes. The anchor, the person who maintains the threshold, must be willing and able. Elena was bound across Europe, holding the gate open. But every new disappearance, every feather, every tolling bell, weakened her influence, stretching her consciousness thin. In a sudden rush of clarity, Sophia realized what the vigil demanded. It was preparing new anchors, selecting individuals by curiosity, by knowledge, by the act of looking too deeply. Those who studied, investigated, or pursued forbidden histories became candidates. The Watchers did not kill indiscriminately. They claimed those chosen to serve as anchors or guardians of the boundary. At that moment, the spinning feather accelerated. The shadows drew closer, circling her, Sophia knew that hesitation could be fatal. She turned and fled the archive, the feather following, as if testing her resolve. She exited into the museum's main floor, but when she glanced back, the air shimmered, golden, cold, and alive. The feather vanished into the stone walls, absorbed, leaving only a faint chill. Returning to Florence, she and Luca began documenting the incident systematically, connecting disappearances, bell tollings, and feather sightings. The pattern was clear. The vigil was no longer static. It was spreading, and Europe alone would not contain it. The modern world, cities, technology, human movement, became part of its domain. CCTV, streetlights, underground tunnels, libraries, all were nodes in a network of observation. In one chilling case in Madrid, a team of archivists studying a 15th century ledger disappeared simultaneously. CCTV showed shadows detaching from walls, swirling around the office, the tolling of distant bells echoing through the city streets. Feathers appeared on every desk. When authorities arrived, the office was empty, clean, as though no one had ever been there. Only black feathers remained. The phenomenon was now global. Reports emerged from isolated towns in Poland, monasteries in Austria, libraries in Italy and France, in Tokyo and New York. Researchers studying European medieval rituals reported black feathers appearing in their offices, accompanied by unexplained electrical anomalies, computers shutting down, lights flickering, and low, tolling sounds that could not be traced. Sophia realized with dawning horror. The vigil's influence was no longer confined to Europe. Technology, information, and curiosity itself had become the conduit. The watchers were adapting, moving with human knowledge, their presence now imperceptible to most, yet omnipresent wherever research or investigation disturbed the boundaries. She turned to Luca, voice trembling. "We can't stop it. Not with institutions, not with authorities. The vigil adapts. Every time we learn, every time anyone learns, we risk attracting them." Luca swallowed hard. "And Elena, she can't hold it forever. Every anchor has limits. Eventually, someone else will be chosen or lost." The two sat in silence, listening to the faint tolling echoing from the streets of Florence below, almost imperceptible, but undeniably there. The world above went about its routines, oblivious to the unseen forces moving beneath. But the vigil had begun marking its presence openly. Shadows, feathers, tolling bells, and disappearances, all connected to human curiosity, all warning of a debt that must be maintained. And somewhere, unseen, Elena Rossi remained the anchor, holding the gate. Her consciousness stretched across Europe, touching crypts, archives, and monasteries, stabilizing the boundary between life and death. But the watchers were patient. The vigil was growing, and the modern world, with its cities, its technology, its endless pursuit of knowledge, was now fully entangled in a centuries-old ritual far older than any human institution. The tolling of bells could be heard faintly across Florence that night, a heartbeat of shadows and feathers, a reminder that the vigil of the veil had not ended. It had evolved, and humanity, in its endless curiosity, had become both witness and participant in a secret older than history itself. By the summer of 2023, the Vigil of the Veil had begun to manifest with alarming frequency. The signs were no longer confined to isolated scholars or cryptic archives. Entire cities experienced phenomena that could not be rationally explained. Bells tolling in office buildings at midnight, shadows detaching from walls and moving independently, and black feathers appearing in museums, libraries, subway stations, and government offices. Reports poured in from Paris, London, Vienna, Berlin, Madrid, Florence, and even New York and Tokyo. The global nature of the incidents became undeniable when Dr. Elena Rossi's old codex surfaced in an encrypted archive online, circulating among researchers obsessed with medieval rituals. Those who downloaded it often reported sudden chills, shadows moving in peripheral vision, and feathers appearing in their workspaces. A few vanished entirely. Sofia Benedetti and Luca Conti, still in Florence, realized that the vigil was no longer localized. Its influence now rode on human curiosity itself, seeking those who pursued forbidden knowledge. They tracked incidents using reports, CCTV footage, and social media posts, connecting disappearances and supernatural occurrences. Patterns emerged. The intensity of events peaked with the phases of the moon, concentrated near historical European centers, but now stretching across continents. One night in London, a research assistant named Isaac Hamilton vanished while examining a manuscript. In the British Library, CCTV footage showed a black feather drifting down from the ceiling before he disappeared. Shadows, tall and unnatural, moved across the walls, yet no one else was present. The camera captured the faint tolling of bells, even though the library's clock tower had been silent for decades. Sofia analyzed the video with Luca. "It's adapting," she whispered. "It doesn't need a physical structure anymore. It moves wherever knowledge resides." In Tokyo, similar events occurred. A historian studying European medieval rituals reported shadows moving independently. In a university archive, black feathers appeared on desks, keyboards, and shelves. When the historian disappeared, cameras revealed only the feathers spinning slowly in midair, as if suspended by invisible hands. Sofia and Luca realized a terrifying truth. The vigil had entered the modern era. Its influence rode technology and human curiosity, unconstrained by geography. Anyone seeking forbidden knowledge became a candidate for disappearance or forced participation in the ritual. Meanwhile, the global authorities struggled to respond. Police reports were dismissed as pranks or delusions. Surveillance footage often proved inconclusive. Shadows were captured, but had no physical mass. Feathers appeared, but dissolved before anyone could touch them. By now, the phenomenon had achieved near total invisibility to the untrained eye, only perceptible to those studying history, occult rituals, or ancient texts. In Florence, Sofia and Luca observed one of the most extreme manifestations yet. In the Uffizi Museum, black feathers had appeared across multiple galleries. Shadows moved independently across the walls and ceilings. CCTV footage recorded faint tolling from the gallery's bell tower. Although no one had touched the ropes or clocks, Luca tried to catalog the feathers. They vibrated subtly, almost imperceptibly, in the air, as though alive. Everywhere knowledge spreads, the vigil follows, Luca said. Every time someone studies the past too closely, they risk attracting the watchers. Sofia's attention was drawn to a pattern in the city itself. Ancient bell towers, churches, and old monasteries corresponded to disappearance sites and supernatural phenomena. She realized the vigil operated like a network, connecting old centers of knowledge across Europe. And with the advent of digital archives, online manuscripts, and global communication, its reach now extended worldwide. One night, Sophia received an encrypted message, seemingly from Elena Rossi herself. It read, "The vigil grows. My presence alone can no longer hold the gate. Soon, a new anchor must be chosen. Observe. Do not interfere. The watchers will test." Sophia and Luca understood the meaning immediately. The anchor, a person who willingly maintains the threshold, could not be replaced easily. Elena's consciousness, stretched across Europe, could barely stabilize the boundary. With each disappearance, each manifestation of shadows and feathers, the gate weakened. Weeks later, coordinated reports emerged globally: New York, Boston, Toronto, and Sydney. Entire libraries experienced black feathers appearing on desks, floors, and shelves. Shadows moved in patterns inconsistent with physical light sources. Bells tolled where none existed. Researchers disappeared, leaving behind only feathers. Sophia began to notice a new phenomenon: shadows appearing not only in historical buildings, but in offices, schools, and homes. Those who pursued knowledge, from students to historians to scientists, became targets. The watchers were no longer bound by ancient architecture. Their influence had adapted to the modern world. In Florence, Sophia and Luca attempted to communicate with authorities, but their warnings were dismissed. Official investigations yielded no results. Footage showed feathers spinning in midair, shadows moving in impossible directions. But no person could be held accountable. The vigil operated outside legal and physical boundaries. By September, the pattern had intensified. Entire districts in Paris and London reported unexplained phenomena. Hospitals, museums, universities, locations with high concentrations of knowledge, experienced black feathers appearing on furniture, shadows detaching from walls, and faint bell tolls audible only to those sensitive to the vigil's presence. Sophia realized that the vigil had begun testing humanity on a larger scale. It was forcing choices: observe and survive, or seek knowledge and risk disappearance. The watchers were everywhere, patient, measuring human curiosity, and marking those who might serve as future anchors. She and Luca returned to Florence's Arno River bank one night, reflecting on the scale of the phenomenon. Black feathers drifted along the water's surface. Tolling bells echoed faintly from distant towers, and shadows moved without source along the streets. The vigil had gone global, no longer confined to crypts or bell towers. It had adapted to the modern world, using curiosity, technology, and human desire for knowledge as conduits. Sophia looked at Luca. "We can't stop it. We can only observe, record, and hope the anchor endures. Elena's presence is stretched too thin. If she fails..." Luca swallowed hard. "Then the vigil will claim the new anchors itself. Whoever they choose next may not survive, or worse, may become permanent." That night, as they walked back through Florence, the faint tolling of invisible bells echoed across the city. Shadows moved in the corners of their vision. A single black feather floated down from nowhere, landing at Sophia's feet. She bent to pick it up, recognizing instantly that this was both a warning and an invitation, a reminder that the vigil had grown. and humanity's curiosity had become the trigger. The modern world, with all its technology, communication, and access to knowledge, was now fully entwined with the ancient ritual. The Vigil of the Veil was no longer a secret of medieval Italy. It was a global, unseen network, patient, eternal, and growing stronger with every soul who dared to uncover the past. And somewhere, unseen across Europe, Elena Rossi remained the anchor, holding the gate. Her consciousness stretched beyond human limits, maintaining the fragile balance between life and death. Yet, the watchers watched, waiting for the next curiosity, the next scholar, the next black feather, ensuring that the vigil would continue unstoppable, timeless, and everywhere at once. By late 2023, the Vigil of the Veil had become an invisible current running beneath the modern world. Governments remained unaware, dismissing the scattered reports as hoaxes or overzealous conspiracy theories. Yet Sofia Benedetti and Luca Conti, observing from Florence, knew the truth. The vigil now manipulated human systems subtly, unseen, leaving no trace of its presence except the inevitable signs, black feathers, unexplained shadows, and the tolling of bells that no human had rung. It began with minor anomalies. Streetlights flickered in perfect rhythm to the tolling of distant, untraceable bells. Surveillance cameras captured shadows that moved independently of any human or light source. Emails and digital archives were found open to pages discussing medieval rituals or cryptic codes. In Tokyo, a professor's computer inexplicably displayed passages from 15th century codices, previously lost or destroyed. Sofia and Luca had begun cataloging these global patterns. Using encrypted messaging networks, they compiled a map of anomalies stretching from Florence and Paris to London, Berlin, Madrid, and Tokyo. Every location had 3 consistent markers: a black feather, shadow movement contrary to light sources, and a faint but perceptible tolling. They theorized that these were the Watchers' way of marking places where curiosity had activated the vigil. The vigil was no longer limited to physical thresholds. Technology, information systems, and human curiosity had become conduits for its influence. Those who sought knowledge of the past became unwitting participants. The Watchers no longer needed to appear fully. The shadows sufficed to instill fear and compel obedience. One evening, Sofia received an encrypted message with no sender. It contained a single line in Latin: "The anchor endures, but the gate's patience wanes." She immediately recognized the handwriting as Elena Rossi's, or at least, a conscious extension of her. Somewhere across Europe, Elena maintained the boundary between life and death, holding the vigil in check. But Sofia could sense through the message that even she could not contain it indefinitely. In Florence, black feathers had begun appearing along the Arno's riverbanks, and in the streets of the historic city center, shadows moved along walls and alleyways, seemingly watching the pedestrians. Flickering in the corners of vision, the city's bell towers occasionally tolled in perfect silence, their ropes unmoved, their clocks frozen in time. Sofia and Luca decided to observe the vigil without interfering. They visited several archives and libraries, noting every feather, shadow, and toll. The pattern was unnervingly systematic. The vigil was no longer reactive. It was predictive. It sought knowledge, calculating risk, and marking those whose curiosity might inadvertently trigger events beyond human control. They traveled to Vienna to investigate reports from the Hofburg archives, where dozens of feathers had appeared in a single night. Inside the library, shadows flickered across walls, independently of any light source. Books on medieval rituals lay open on tables, their pages untouched by any human. The tolling of a bell echoed faintly through the building, though the tower above had no mechanism to produce it. Sophia realized the vigil had begun integrating with human society's own systems. Technology, history, and even institutional knowledge now intersected with the Watcher's influence. In Berlin, a power plant had inexplicably shut down while maintenance workers reported black feathers on consoles. In London, a university laboratory studying medieval codices experienced the same phenomena. The global scale was undeniable. The vigil was no longer an isolated supernatural occurrence. It was a persistent network, invisible yet pervasive, entwined with humanity's pursuit of knowledge. And the anchor, Elena Rossi, was the only human stabilizing it. One night, Sophia and Luca returned to Florence and walked along the Arno. The river shimmered under the moonlight, disturbed only by the occasional drifting feather. They stopped near an old bell tower. Faintly, a tolling echoed, not from the tower, but deep beneath the city. Luca broke the silence. It's everywhere now, even if we never see it directly. The Watchers influence everything. The tolling, the feathers, they're signs, but also warnings. We can't stop it, only observe, survive, and avoid becoming anchors ourselves. Sophia nodded, eyes fixed on the river. Elena still holding the gate. But how long? Every disappearance, every manifestation weakens her. And the more we document, the more the vigil adapts. Curiosity itself has become a risk. From that moment, they understood the vigil's permanence. It was not just a medieval relic of fear. It had evolved with the world, integrating into society's information, communication, and knowledge systems. Its reach was invisible, but undeniable. And the modern world, with its libraries, museums, archives, and technology, had become the perfect stage for its influence. The final proof came unexpectedly. While cataloging footage from Florence, Luca noticed a subtle anomaly, shadows moving in patterns that mimicked human movement, but never corresponded to any person. Sophia observed a feather hovering above a museum display, spinning gently despite the lack of wind. The faint tolling of a bell echoed from a tower long decommissioned. They both fell silent. The vigil was no longer confined to history. It was now an integrated, adaptive system, invisible, patient, and eternal. Humanity could observe it, document it, and speculate, but never fully comprehend or control it. Those who pursued forbidden knowledge remained at risk. Those who ignored it might survive, but were forever touched by its presence. And somewhere, across Europe, Elena Rossi remained the anchor. Her consciousness stretched beyond human limits, tethering the world to life and death, preventing the gate from fully opening. She endured silently, unseen, and the Watchers waited patiently. Sophia looked at Luca, voice barely audible. This is the world now. We live with the vigil. It watches, it marks, it tolls. And one day, everyone will know its rhythm. If they look too closely, the bells of Florence tolled faintly, unconnected to any mechanism. Shadows moved in the corners of the city streets. A black feather drifted past Sophia's face, floating to the ground, and she left it untouched. The vigil of the veil had not ended. It had evolved. It was everywhere, and the world above continued, oblivious. Somewhere deep beneath Florence, the tolling continued, a heartbeat across centuries, a reminder that some boundaries are eternal, and some secrets are never meant to be fully known.